قوم ظالمين ربنا أخرجنا منها فإن عدنا فإنا ظالمون قال اخشوا فيها ولا تكلمون إنه كان فريقا من عبادي يقولون ربنا آمنا فاغفر لنا وارحمنا وأنت خير الراحمين فارتدتموه سرا حتى أنسكم ذكري وكنتم منكم تضحكون إني جزيتهم اليوم بما صبروا إنهم هم الفائزون قال كم لبثتم في الأرض عدد سنين قالوا لبثنا يوما أو بعد يوم فسأل العادين قال إن لبثتم إلا قليلا لو إن كنتم تعلمون أفحسبتم إنما خلقناكم عبثا إنكم إلينا لا ترجعون فتعالى الله المالك الحق لا إله إلا هو الرب العرش الكريم ومن يدعو مع الله إلها آخر لا برهان له به إنما حسابه عند ربه إنه لا يفلح الكافرون قل ربي اغفر وارحم وانت خير الراحمين.
تقدير الله اكبر تقدير الله اكبر تقدير الله اكبر.
Zaid has served this project really well, and let us put him on the spot for this program. So we appreciate you answering the call, young brother. Inshallah. So again, I just want to be brief because we had our time for our advertisers, and now we're getting into our program. So I don't want to belabor it, but I want to thank you all for coming tonight for the official rollout of the Dream Storytelling Project. This was a project that started at the very beginning of the pandemic, before we kind of knew how that would unfold. And alhamdulillah, it's been something that's been continuous and expanding ever since then. And so, this was our first opportunity to bring together folks who've been a part of the project as interns, as volunteers, as storytellers, as the supportive family of our storytellers. And so we wanted to take this chance to have everybody in person to celebrate the achievement and the accomplishment of this first part of the project. Again, in terms of how we got here, because I said the first part of the project, this was the initial nugget of this idea was that we would capture maybe 15 to 20 oral histories from folks in our community on iPhone cameras, and that we would roll them out after a year's time on a nice website, and that would really kind of be the crux of it. As we got more into the possibilities of what we could do with this project, Dr. Lisa Perkins introduced us to the Public Archive at Western Michigan University, and we were able to partner with them to make sure that these histories could be recorded in perpetuity and be always available for folks to benefit from. We were able to go from 20 interviews to 50 interviews. We'll talk more about the next steps later, inshallah. But really, the project was able to grow over that 2-year period. We went from doing interviews on Zoom at the beginning of the pandemic, when we didn't know how long that stage would last, to being able to do them here in Masala and in the cafe and all around the Muslim Center. So again, the project grew and expanded over time. And alhamdulillah, today we're celebrating kind of the closure of the first part of it. Now, someone might ask, how does this project really fit into what DREAM does? DREAM is a community development organization. We try to say that we're combining community organizing with housing and land development to revitalize this neighborhood, to build a healthy community here that's anchored by this message. And so you might ask, how does an oral history project really relate to what we do? And really the answer to that is that it's in the title of this event, right, which is SANKOFA. And what that word means, right, it comes from the Twi language in Ghana, the Akan people. And what it means is literally to go back and get it, right? And the word was popularized essentially in response to this idea that Ghanaian people had lost their way, their culture, their traditions after British colonialism. And they said that the way forward is for us to go back to our traditions, to go back to our histories, to go back and get it. And that's what will take us forward. And so that's the same spirit that really undergirds this project as far as dream taking it on. You know, our intention is to transform this entire neighborhood around the masjid in service to everyone, but specifically to this Muslim community. But to do that, we know that we have to kind of turn to our roots. We have to know our history. You know, one of my favorite quotes personally from Malcolm X, mercy on him, is when he says, of all our studies, of all our research, history is best qualified to reward our studies. It's actually the other way. Of all our studies, history is best qualified to reward our research. And, you know, so just this idea that of everything we could sit and learn, knowing where we came from, finding inspiration in the past, finding warnings in the past, finding models in the past are really important. And for us, we didn't want to go too much farther without doing what we could to really document the rich history of this community as we try to take those next steps forward, inshallah. So with that, we want to really move into the program. Inshallah, tonight we'll have a chance to view previews of a few of the oral history clips that we were able to record. We'll also have a chance to hear from this incredible panel, who I'll introduce in just a moment. And then we get to recognize a lot of the young folks who were involved in this project. And there was a whole team of people, an evolving team, a growing team. And Dr. Lisa will really spell out the many parts of this project to get it where it is today. But we want to make sure that we acknowledge our young folks, and we'll have some elders in our community to help us with that, inshallah. And then hopefully we'll end right in time for Maghrib and be able to make our way back to the multi-purpose room for dinner. So I know people are like, it's after Ramadan, you're making us eat after Maghrib. So that's why we tried to have some appetizers, so hold us over, inshallah, and we'll have dinner, inshallah, right after this. So with that said, I think we want to move into our first two videos. So I'll just say a quick word. You know, these videos, these first two that we're going to start with, represent two teachers in our community, mashallah. Two people who committed their lives as Muslims to studying and then transmitting that knowledge to the rest of us. They took different paths along their course of study, but they both have done long-time service in this community. And so the first one is, of course, Imam Khalil, our beloved Imam Khalil. May Allah have mercy on him. So we're going to hear Imam Khalil talk about what it was like for him to become an imam and kind of, how the community called him to that work. And then we'll hear from our beloved Sheikh NFN, who's here with us tonight, about his studies overseas and what it was like to go through that process and bring that knowledge back to us. And, alhamdulillah, both of these brothers, year after year, supporting each other right in that classroom across the hall, teaching us on a weekly basis here at the Muslim Center. So very grateful to them. We make a lot of dua for Imam Khalil. He gave the first khutbah I ever heard here at the Muslim Center when I was first visiting Detroit as a Muslim. We really miss him. So we want to start with this, inshallah.
One day, and this was during the Eid, Fitr. They had the Eid prayer downtown at Cobo Hall. It was Cobo Hall back then. I think it's a TCF building now or something. And I went down there with them. And my first exposure to a lot of Muslim men and women and children. And it was so nice. I really liked it. I said, wow, I want some of this. How can I do this? The people were all glowing, happy. The talk was upbeat, positive, far cry from where I was. And this group of fellows, they brought me here to the Muslim Center. And this was the Muslim Center, this bank building. And the new building was a parking lot. So they walked into the middle of the parking lot, and the imam was coming out. So it was after Salah. Dawood Alim, I'll never forget it. He walked up to me, and one of the brothers said, this guy wants to be a Muslim. So Dawood said, do you believe that a man can be God? I said, no. I said, okay, you're a Muslim. And turned around and walked back into the masjid. So that was my shahada at that time. Of course, later on, but we did it properly. But I thought that was pretty good. And from then on, I mean, I would come to prayer and I started studying because I was, you know, a bookworm, a nerdy kind of guy. So, and it evolved and evolved. And, you know, I had no ambition to be an imam or anything. I just wanted to come and worship, you know. But the people liked me. And, someone asked me, do you want to teach some kids? So sure. So I would teach kids just basic stuff. You know. Actually, it was a little more than basic because some of the elements were Islamic, you know, Aqidah, but a lot of it was how do you live with other people? How do you conduct yourself? How's your behavior? So it was more than just a Islamic class. It was more of a learning how to live class. And I have many students. I don't know how this whole imam thing started. One day somebody asked me to give a khutbah. The people chose. I really didn't want to do this. I still don't want to do it. Because it's a weighty job. It's really weighty, emotionally, spiritually. For many years, I was the sisters' imam. Because the sisters would come to me complaining about the guys all the time. This guy promised me $1, he didn't give it to me. So let me call him and talk to him. All kinds of stuff. I come to the masjid every day. My duties is to lead Dhuhr and Asr prayer. So I'm here. I tell everybody I'm here, and if you need to talk to me or you need some counseling, you want to get married, or you need to get a funeral or a janazah together, you know, come see me. So I make myself available to the Muslim community in case they need something. So a lot, guide my tongue, help me to give to the people what you want me to give, not what I want to give, but what you want. So it's a dua. And he does it every time, especially when I do a khutbah. I say, guide my words. Help me to deliver the message that you want me to deliver so that the people can benefit from it. He hasn't failed me yet.
My greatest passion was to just go to Africa. But when I got there, it felt so much like home. Studying and learning in Africa, it made me immerse myself in the remembrance of Allah. Went to the masjid, studying. So I studied Quran for 2.5 or so years. Starting Quran at 21 wasn't the easiest thing for me. The School for the African American Islamic Institute, which had a Quranic school established, and I started in the Arabic school. And alhamdulillah, I was able to go through primary school, middle school, and high school and get a shahada or a diploma for the African American Islamic Institute. 3 things that I learned the most in Africa were respect, manners, and patience. When I was in West Africa, you know, just learning respect. I knew I had respect to elders, but, you know, I learned to even gain respect by seeing my sheikh with his mother, seeing the elders with a mother, my teacher, and things like that. Where an elder was to come into the room, everyone would stand and greet them, or someone who came into the room who was of the lineage of the Prophet Muhammad sallallahu alaihi wasallam, respect they gave them. And then manners, the manner in which you dealt with each other, and patience. In America, you want everything, always want it right now, and also the diligence in studying. In America, we have all of the study accessories, like you got a computer, you got this, not. But in reality, we don't. No, we have all of those, the accessories to learn, but we don't study much. In Africa, I was in school with people who were like Hafiz Quran, so like if we had a lesson, I would study it to summarize it they would memorize it, coming from the aspect of someone who went through some of the best schools and one of the quote unquote best high schools and going to college and then coming all the way back to the bottom, studying on a dusty floor with some children on a slate and coming back up to both sides of that whole dynamic, and it benefited me immensely.
Okay. So, you know, those two clips in particular, and throughout the program, we'll show a few more clips. We're not going to show them sequentially right now, but you know, knowledge, seeking knowledge, right? Becoming an knowledge, and then turn around and teach us the knowledge. And so, starting with two people who, one who spent extensive time overseas to come back home and teach after a very long time, another who was, you know, inspired from the moment he encountered Islam, and then learned and taught as he learned. Everything he will taught, learned, and internalized, he turned around and taught us, you know, the next weekend. So I wanted to just start with those, and inshallah we'll have a chance to hear from several more of our storytellers. May Allah bless all of them. So now we want to push into this panel. And honestly, you know, this is a hometown crowd, so I feel kind of goofy introducing these particular folks to y'all here at the Muslim Center. And so I won't belabor it, but we're blessed to have a really strong panel, starting with our grassroots researcher, mashallah, who's recently returned home. You know, I called to ask Brother Akil if he would join our panel, and he said, I'll be moving home 2 weeks before that. I would love to. So we're very grateful to have him moderate this panel, to bring his research experience into this conversation, to help ground these histories, this local history, in a national narrative. We also have Sister Zarina Amin. We were very grateful to be in partnership with Zarina on this project, and she was working on a book called At Their Feet through her company, Book Power Publishing. And Zarina is an anthropologist, you know, a serial entrepreneur, mashallah, and you know, she'll each of them, but she'll share more about her particular role. Our project and help to guide us through once we expanded the number of oral histories that we were doing. We were responsible for training a lot of our interns in videography, and again, it was just a real, you know, lesson to the project. Sister Tasneem Mariam is I often tell her, as far as I know, she photographed the very first Dream event, and alhamdulillah has been connected ever since then. She started doing natural light photography, I guess 10 years ago now. And actually served as our first artist in residence at the artist residency down the street, the Detroit Artist Residency. Again, an experience that started right before COVID, and so it was work, but you know, we were honored for her to accept that invitation and be willing to share her works with the community. And so she was kind of the photographer in residence, if you will, with this project, and was also responsible for helping some of our interns capture some of the histories. And then Dr. Lisa Perkins, who is really one of the directors of this entire project, professor of anthropology, associate professor at Western Michigan University, or actually comparative religion, and also a scholar at the Institute for Social Policy and Understanding. And Dr. Lisa, you'll understand the depth of her work with this project once we see her presentation in a few minutes. But alhamdulillah, she's one of the unique reasons that we were able to grow this into the thing that we've become. So with that, I'm going to take a seat at the edge of the table in case there's any context I can provide throughout the conversation. But I'm going to pass the microphone to my brother Akil. I'm going to lower this one for him.
We have.
All right. Assalamu alaikum. All right. Can everyone hear me good? Yeah. All right. So when Mark was giving me his elevator speech to take the event, he said, "So, Brother Kill, you know, alhamdulillah, how you doing?" He gave me the whole spiel. And it's like, so I got this program. It's SANKOFA, right? It's called SANKOFA, and it's about our Storyteller Project that we did with Dream. I didn't know that they were doing this project. He said that, right? That was the first catchphrase that he had, right? He says, the SANKOFA, and he said the Storyteller Project, right? So I'm listening. So I listened to the whole thing. He said, so what do you think? I said, Mark, you said SANKOFA, I was on board. So you didn't have to do all of that. So as he was telling me what he wanted me to do, right, and I was trying to figure out, well, how would my comments fit into this work, because I really think the focus would be on the work of the youth in terms of the project, right, because that's what we need, right. And reflecting back on the work that I've done in this research about Islam in Detroit and the broader context of America, one of the things that has been a problem, right, is not that we get converts or reverts to Islam, is how do we sustain Islam multi-generational, right? Since the early 1900s, there has been Islam in Detroit, Muslims, right? Sunni Muslims, right? But where are their lineage of these people who took Islam, right? And even today, we have people that we know, right? Who have passed, right? And some of their grandchildren are not Muslim, right? This is a problem. And so with this project, incorporating the youth, getting them involved in their own narrative of Islam, I can think of nothing more important than that, right? And so the things that I could talk to you about of who came before, and who started Islam, and which masjid started where, alhamdulillah, that's good, but how is that going to impact the youth? And so when we look at this and their work and their effort going forward, and them being participants in collecting this here history and narrative and this storytelling, that's where the focus should be, right? And we really need that. Because yes, it sounds good to say Islam been here all this time, but what type of Islam are we dealing with, right? And what are we doing? Like even with the Muslim center, right? How many masajids have become, old people hangouts? We have to have the masajids be vibrant. And if every facet of Islam, from the time of the Sahaba, the masajids were vibrant. Ali, right, Ibn Abi Talib, when he was young, he was part of the Islamic movement. He was not an old man in Islam. He was young. He was young during the time of the Prophet, right? So it is the youth. Islam is with the youth. And so if we don't incorporate them in it, then it's going to wane. That's what happens. It gets old and withers, right? We can't afford that. So we have to include the youth. So I want to keep, what I have to say brief and, let them tell their narrative. So that's all I have to say. Moving right along, Mark. Okay, Mark. Okay, so how did the collaboration with Elisa and Wayne begin? Western Missions begin?
Yeah. So
I'm sorry, when I see the W, I'm always thinking Wayne State. I'm a Wayne State alumni, so if any of you are in here, and not Warriors, I'm part of Wayne State. Okay, so.
But I'm glad Chris said that. So I asked for his bio. He didn't give me his bio. He just said I'm a grassroots researcher. So now we know it's cool. So in terms of how the project, how we linked up with Dr. Elisa at Western Michigan University, and I want to keep this brief, but I did want to offer this context. This actually started at a volunteer meeting for Dream. This was the Ramadan before the pandemic, and we actually still had our office in the house down the street, and we had about 25 volunteers come to a volunteer meeting in Iftar, and as a group of us, we did some brainstorming about what folks wanted to see in the neighborhood, how people might want to get involved. And Dr. Lisa was one of the folks who came to that Iftar, and she identified herself as somebody who wanted to stay involved, and said she could help write some grants maybe, or some other skill sets. And so when we had an opportunity to write a grant application to get funding to do this project, we were still mainly a bunch of volunteers at that point when we started, because we had one person on staff managing our housing work, but we have to get funding to support a project like this and be able to pay our interns and get the videography equipment we needed and so forth. And so Dr. Lisa worked with us on that initial application. And because this project was really right within her wheelhouse, her professional skill set, she helped us take it from really a nugget of a vision about capturing some recordings on some iPhones to, again, a much more expansive project that's going to have multiple phases and inshallah, bring a lot of benefit to the community. So I say that to acknowledge, her work with the project, but also to say to everyone, the door is always open at Dream. We try not to be too slow with our responses when people reach out to volunteer. You can always send us a follow-up if you didn't hear from us. We do multiple events throughout the year, but also you want to have a one-on-one meeting and talk about what you can offer to the project or how you can get involved or somebody else you think we should talk to engage. I just want to let everybody know the door is open for that as we try to keep going this project. It's a community project, inshallah. So with that, thank you.
Okay, Dr. Lisa, question. Okay, so how was your career path that brought you to focusing on Black Muslim history, right, in Detroit, specifically with the Muslim Center?
Alhamdulillah, I'd like to say I'm grateful that I was at the right place at the right time at that volunteer meeting, and it really was a very important moment in my life because it really did change the type of work that I did. So I'm trained as an anthropologist, and I've always been interested in studying everyday life of Muslim communities. My first work was actually, my master's project was in Morocco. I had a chance to visit Morocco first for 3 months, and then for a year to live with a Muslim family who treated me like one of their kids. And that was way back in 2003, 2004, and that left such a deep impression on me that it really, I came back to the U.S. and instead of continuing and wanting to do another project on Morocco, I got really curious about, I felt a lot of culture shock coming back from Morocco. And I was like, how do people who've grown their whole life in a place like that, how can they, how can they come to a place like America and still keep their same kinds of, there's some kinds of culture, there's some kinds of ways of life. And that I decided I wanted to study Muslim civic engagement in the United States. And I started that in 2007. So from 2007 until today, I've been studying Muslim American civic engagement in Detroit. However, most of that time I spent in Hampshire. And just doing a traditional ethnographic project where I was, pretty much the sole researcher, and I would talk to people and get their advice and input, but it was really up to me what part of the interviews to use, what questions to ask, what direction to take it. And I felt pretty, I loved the project, and I did get my book from that, Muslim American City, which came out in 2020, which is what I needed for tenure. So it all worked out good, but I did feel like I wanted to do something different because I felt frustrated with some of the limitations of being this lone researcher. And right around that time, in 2019, is when we first had the idea when Brother Mark first called me and asked me about this project, and I saw that what he was proposing would fit into what I wanted to do, which is called community-based participatory research, which means that you partner with a community-driven project. And so I saw that this was the perfect opportunity for me, so we applied for this grant together. We got a small grant because of the young interns and their willingness to come and do this project, because the project was based around them, and because they did an excellent job, we were able to grow the project. And then we got a second smallish grant, but very grateful for it. And then the next year, so then we still wanted to keep going, and people were so impressed with what we did with such little funding. We did so much that we impressed the Henry Luce Foundation, and they gave us a grant for like 10 times more than we had before. So that we're in this new stage of the project now, and I'm just so thrilled with how it's gone. But I really do need to stress it's the young people and it's their parents who helped them get here, who made this happen, and the storytellers who are willing to share their stories. And so I'm again just really grateful and honored to be part of this.
All right. Can you describe the project more in detail?
Sure. Maybe I'll show some images and slides. And so this is called the Detroit Muslim Storytelling Project. It's also known as the Dream Storytelling Project. The two projects are the same. And again, it's been going on for about 2 years. The aim is simply to increase public knowledge about African American Muslim community building in Detroit historically and today. Why Detroit is a question I get asked a lot. by people like funders, you know, and my colleagues even in Kalamazoo. And I don't have to tell people here why Detroit. I mean, because Detroit, you know, has a vital importance to Black Muslim history in so many ways that we're all very familiar with. That has strong, enduring traditions of African American Muslim leadership. Plus, now there's many people coming in from Africa who are bringing their own traditions, and then there's all these transnational connections, and so things already were so strong and interesting and exciting and beautiful, and now there's a whole other layer as more and more people come from Africa, and not just come from Africa, but go back and forth to different African places. And so, you know, and also because Black Muslims, in cooperation with many others across ethnic, racial, and religious lines, are doing extraordinary things in the city of Detroit. And you can see that, those crossing of ethnic and racial lines pretty clearly in this picture, which was an image done by Louisa Bergman for The Nation magazine of Dream of Detroit in 2017. But of course, you know, it's the method in which one does decide to carry out a project and a study is very important. And one could say that the process in which a project is carried out is just as important as the product. And that's something I firmly believe in. And this is captured well in a method called community-based participatory research, in which the people most affected by an issue, or most involved in an issue, or most central to an issue, or a phenomenon, in this case, Black Muslim history and leadership, those are the people who are going to be engaged in a collaborative knowledge production. And those are the people who, you know, those are the people that, you know, if some university-based researcher like myself comes into it, you do collaborative work at every stage of the project, and every single stage, like, what is the study going to be? What are the questions? What is the, who's going to be involved? What are the outputs? How are the outputs going to be disseminated and shared? So every single decision is made collaboratively and collectively. And that's pretty different than the traditional anthropological approach, but I'm happy to say that I do see that the field does have, is turning in this direction anyway. And so, you know, I'm not the only one doing this, although it's a bit still, you know, it's definitely coming into its own, this community-based participatory research method that is very vital. And so what I wanted to say is, you know, the most rewarding aspect of this project for me has been working closely with activists and artists from within the Black Muslim community in every stage of the project. And it's the people that you see here and in the room. Another one of the most rewarding aspects of the project has been working with our young historians. And so far, we have engaged 9 young people from within the community, and you'll hear from them soon too in a little while, inshallah. They've gone through training with us, especially with Sister Malika Shabazz and Brother Ismail and Sister Tasneem and Mark and everyone, many others, to do this work. And they have done much of the main work in carrying out and documenting oral history interviews. And with these young people, as Brother Mark already said, we have already collected 50 video recorded oral history interviews over the past couple of years via Zoom and live. Young people were involved in many parts of the process, including selecting storytellers, conducting background research, and writing for the interviews, carrying out the interviews, video recording the interviews, facilitating the interviews. And also, you know, when we did an interview, often a young person would reach out to the person that was being interviewed for a preliminary interview beforehand, and it was a very involved multi-stage process. Interviewing is an art. It's not just like reading questions off the page. So we would decide together, the intern and I would decide together on what kinds of questions were being asked, but I kept emphasizing to them, and they took me up on it, don't just stick to the page. You know, if some people are going to talk really quickly and get through the questions fast, so you're going to have to slow them down and ask more, so and vice versa. So it's an art, and these young people rose to the occasion and with confidence and grace and made these interviews really come alive. And so they had ongoing training in all aspects of you know, the interviewing itself and the recording, which you know, their supervising producer, Sister Malika Shabazz, will talk about that aspect. We have 4 main aspects of our project. They're interconnected. This is the archive, which we're kind of showing today, which we consider to be about halfway complete, but there's really, you know, we'll see how far we can go with it. And then the website, which will be under the direction of Sister Sabrina Hanifa, who unfortunately couldn't be here, but you know, she's very integral to the project. She's designed beautiful things for historic Masjid Muhammad's website and documented her own history on her own projects too. So we'll have clips of these long. The interviews were like 90 minutes to 3 hours long. And so, some people will watch the whole interview, and some people won't be able to, have the time to watch the whole interview. So what we do is we go through a process and we take what we ended up calling the jewel, like the gems of the interview, and video editing them, and then having 2-minute clips, 3-minute clips, and we're going to have them organized on the website in a very easily digestible format, inshallah. Publications, general readership publications, such as the one that we're carrying out with Sister Zarina El-Amin. Will talk about the publication aspect. Photography, very key, amazing part of the project, which Sister Tasneem will talk about. And finally, we have our film. And the film is the thing that's, I found it's very, very difficult to do a film on a small budget. And so we did need a large grant to do that, and that allowed us to, to tap into a whole new level of, of bringing history to life. Whereas the rest of our products, our video archive and website, are about, let's say, Black Muslim history of Detroit historically and today, considering all of Detroit. But the documentary is going to be more narrow, inshallah. It's going to focus mainly on this community that we're sitting in right here, this geographical area right here. And so it's a sub part of the larger project that's going to have its own trajectory, inshallah. And the people you see here, all these very talented filmmakers who come together, they're our crew. Alhamdulillah, we're all together. And okay, so here's the archive. And you can use the QR code and scan it onto your phone if you want, or you can just type in Dream Storytelling Interviews or Scholar Works, it'll come up. And so here you see one of our 50 interviews. It was with Brother Dawood Clark. And each interview has the keywords and has all of the metadata, meaning like every person who was involved in the process, explaining what everyone did. And the keywords are really important because it makes it searchable, actually internationally. And we had a librarian from Western Michigan University who worked really hard to help us design this. And so we have a really this is like a top of the line kind of video recorded, a video archive. And it's actually the first one at Western Michigan University. So Western Michigan University is really proud of this project and has supported me a lot too. Alhamdulillah. And so, Brother Dawood Clark was one of our 50 interviews. I would recommend watching this one if you have a chance. It's very dynamic, and he's quite a storyteller, alhamdulillah. Each interview has a description, as well as the keywords, like a little summary about what's it about. And then you see there's other views. You can do a slideshow view or another view where you just see pictures. There are people, male and female. We try to do about equal, all ages. We try to, span generations. Of course, we are kind of favoring the older generations, but we're also showing across the generations. And this is just a preview of what Sister Zarina will talk about. So basically, we had a number of our interviews that we reformatted in a written format to join in with Sister Zarina's project, which is about Black American Muslim leader across the United States. So Detroit is well represented in that book. And then we'll go back to that with Sister Zarina. Here's a little work sample that's 2 minutes long, and actually it was designed by someone here, Alexis Collins, who's actually at that camera, and she did a miraculously wonderful job of taking our interviews and piecing them together. I'll play it for you, but this was really key to allowing a wider audience and support for our project, and I'm excited to play it for you. It's about 2 minutes long, inshallah.
It was a neighborhood. It was an African-American neighborhood. And when I say neighborhood, I want to put emphasis on the neighbor, not just a hood, a neighborhood. I think back to that, and I think to what we have now. It's a big difference.
Around the neighborhood of the Muslim Center, there are a number of properties that have been abandoned. I've lived enough time to see all this be pretty much deserted.
We just want a safe, secure neighborhood, and we want to be neighborly.
I believe that there's much more of a desire now to work to bring it back the way that it should be.
The work that Dream of Detroit is doing, I felt just naturally feeds into that. Dream of Detroit is focused on creating a stronger neighborhood and helping people keep their homes.
We're trying to build a Muslim community here.
Longfellow Block Club, we just get together and we make stuff happen.
The place I feel most comfortable, the most familiar with, the most at home, the most welcomed is here at the Muslim Center. You get this sense of family, of connectedness.
Yep, dream. We need people to come and join us. So, you know, if you're African American and you're looking for a place to be, this is a good place to be.
That's the end of my presentation.
Okay, thank you. Thank you.
Up there.
So, thank you. Blake. So, tell us of your work documenting Black Muslim culture and history.
Okay. So, oh, I'm sorry. But so for my graduate studies, my undergrad, I also was going to change. I was at the cusp of the change from warrior to here. But I decided to change from information technology and I went into TV, film, and I studied media studies in New York. And so while I was there, that's when social media was really popping, was really starting to grow in a certain way. And there was a particular website that I won't say that gained popularity. And I remember looking at it and seeing how so many Black people, especially Black young girls, were just enthralled with this website. Oh my God, look at this, and blah, blah, blah. And it was just sitting back looking at it like, but they're just mocking your style. Right? And it really turned into, okay, can I complain about it or can I do something about it? And so from there, it just started with, okay, I was in school, I have access to equipment. Hey, friends, someone from me, what are you doing? You want me to film you? Bet. And just being blessed with friends who let me film them and not pay them. I said thank you so much, but not doing it just for pay, doing it because this is my friend and I'm committed to what you're doing. That's kind of where it started for me. So I was doing that with my short film, with the Lowland experience, and really just moving over to producing a little bit. So now helping other people create their content. And so that's where it got professional. I think it's always just been in me from being a Black Muslim and having an old school point and shoot camera. You know, before cell phones, you had to actually buy film and put it in the camera and roll it. All this good stuff, and just going from there with that turn to digital kind of made it easier. So yeah.
So talk to us about your role in doing the mentoring and the training.
So by the time I came in, they had already done at least like 20, 30 interviews. And so originally Sabrina called me and said, there's this program and we want you to join as a consultant. And I was like, oh yeah, sure, you know, consultant means you're in the back. You know, just, you ask me a question, I answer it. And so I ended up going to some of the interviews, and at first I was just in the back, just watching and doing whatever, but eventually just, when you're creative and you see something that can be changed, you're just like, hey, just move the light over there. You know, and so just that kind of turned into having more of a role in it. And then eventually Dr. Ferguson called me and said, hey, do you want to be our supervisor producer? And I said, sure, why not? And so from there, just really working with the students and really having them think about, because everyone has one of these, right? Everyone has a cell phone, everyone has a video camera, but that doesn't mean that you know how to make a movie per se. Like I tell people all the time, everyone buys all these Canons, and I've seen some beautifully shot crap because people don't know what they're doing. And so really, I think for me, probably what the best was when we had our little all-day session on how to, basically just what is filmmaking 101, show them a couple of movie clips, show them talk about framing, lighting, audio, and just kind of seeing the click in their heads. So like the clip with Imam Khalil, that was post that session. I could tell it was a plan. But that was post that session. But just seeing it click in their heads, and it got to the point where I was just there. They were running their own crew, and whoever was interviewing was figuring out the questions. Whoever was doing DP was doing their lighting, and I was just like, I'm just here to make sure the doors are locked. That's what I'm here for. And so just being really proud of them, just really taking ownership of it and taking initiative and asking questions, but like once they got it and they were just like, okay, we get it, it was just blast off.
Okay. So you're doing a lot of podcast production and stuff like that. So situate this project in that overall like landscape.
So this go a couple of different ways. You already have the audio because you have the video, and some of the audio, you heard cars, that can be cleaned up a little bit. But like I told the students, audio is one of the hardest things to clean up to edit. And so if you have a huge sound, it's going to be more difficult to clean that up with money and someone who has a whole lot of experience. But you always shoot like it's the final thing. Like if anyone says, "Oh, we'll fix it in post," red flag. Because fix it now, because some things are harder to fix in post production. Sorry, editing. But with the audio, you can easily turn it into just a series of whether it's the full interviews, whether it's the clips. If this grows from the students interviewing themselves on their own podcast, if there's different cohorts for different interviews, you could have a behind the scenes of Dream of Detroit podcast, students tell all, and the students actually interview each other, interview themselves, produce it themselves. You can also use some of the content from those interviews as catalysts for other issues. So, for instance, the housing issues that are going on in the city of Detroit. You have a lot of people in this neighborhood who have been here since they were little, in this Nashville and outside of this Nashville. So some of the content from those interviews can be used as catalysts for conversations for those podcasts. So there's a lot of different avenues that you can take with it. At this point, you can probably have your own Dream Detroit podcast network. But seriously though, there are a lot of different ways that you can take the content that you have and repurpose it, and so it can continue to live and grow.
Dr. Perkins, I did have one question regarding the interviews. You said some of them were like longer. In those longer interview sessions, is it broken up into chapters at all, or is it just straight?
Well, that's an excellent question. So the ethic governing the archive was to keep everything exactly as much as we could, and only get rid of like little pauses or like someone saying, "Hey, can you repeat the question?" We wanted to keep it just exactly in its most raw form, and this way, like people could do what they want with it. It's open to it's actually publicly accessible, and it's in perpetuity. Like Lester promises that this is going to be up for good, inshallah, as long as. And so, but then the website, that's what the website is about. The website, with the team, and especially with Sister Sabrina Hanifa and our video editors who've been working on the clips, we're going to try to organize the website in a thematic way, and and actually just get some of what we consider to be the gems. However, what we consider to be the gems might not be what you would consider the gems, so we have to have the whole thing intact, right?
Right. Absolutely.
Thanks for every question.
Yep. All right. Zareen. So, can you talk to us more about your role in preserving this So that was some history in the project you
So nice to see you all here. I'll say first, I want to thank Dream of Detroit for doing this type of project, and Dr. Arisa in particular, because you are a gem. Like, straight up, you are definitely a gem, and I don't think that many of the projects would be able to get to the level that they are without all of your hard work. So I want to thank you, as well as all the volunteers and such that have been working on it. Before I answer that, I was getting a little bit emotional watching the young Khalil, and I was like, dang, a lot has gone into this building, and a lot has gone into this community and bringing this community together. And so many people have sacrificed day in and day out, volunteering, putting their money up, just a lot. And as a child of this place, I think for a long time, I kind of took it, for granted. I was like, oh, whatever, going to the Muslim Center, just like a little place, But looking at the growth and looking at the number of people that this place impacts, and really looking at it, I get a little overwhelmed. Like, wow, that's really special. So I think this project, looking at the ways that people kind of pulled back their lives and told how they started and how they got into the positions that they are and the things that they do is extremely beneficial, for all of us. My particular role, I'm a cultural anthropologist, and point blank, I'm interested in the ways that people do this thing called being human. I just like to see the way people live, the way they believe, the way they dress, the way they act, all of that I'm most interested in. And here, a lot made me be someone who is supposed to get the words down. Like, that's my role at this particular moment in life, where my job is to help people capture their thoughts and their ideas and then get them down onto paper. So we partnered with Dream of Detroit because my father had this idea to do this book called, it was called Before I Died, but some people said that was morbid. So we changed the name to At Their Feet, which means, sitting at the feet of the elders, right? Like having the idea of us being able to go to our leaders and our respected elders and soaking up all of their knowledge, their experiences, their wisdom, and being able to learn from them. So he at first asked me to interview him and then two of his friends, I think, and then I decided to expand it, into a bigger project. So we expanded it, and over the last 2 years, we've done a lot of interviews across the country. I hired an editor by the name of Ida Rashid, and she came in and did a lot of interviews and put together some of the stories and such too. And then, I say, life started lifing, and I put it to the side for a little bit, and now we're almost 100 live. It should be out in a little while. I'm not even gonna say any more deadlines. It'll just be out in a little while. And so you saw the cover, which is absolutely gorgeous. So Tasneem came to my house. I said, Tasneem, do you remember this, Tasneem? I said, listen, we want to do a little photo shoot, and the project is called At Their Feet. And so I want my kids, right, to be sitting, and then I'm going to have my dad right there, and they're going to be at his feet, listening, and so she shot the photo that's like in the center of the book. So, I'm extremely proud of that, because as you saw in Khalil, and as we know, so many times when our elders pass, like their stories and such are not collected, and it ends up 6 feet in the ground, right? Like you've seen that, right? Right? Yes? Yes. Yeah. And so how many of us know, like so many of our people that, like you may remember an instance, but we don't really have all of their stuff captured. So my job is to make sure that it's captured. And real quick, like I went to Mexico and I was talking to them about like some of the history and such. And one of the guys asked me, he was like, why you don't know as much about us as you do the Egyptians? And I was like, no, why? And so he said, because when the Spanish came and colonized Mexico, like they burnt all of our history, like they burnt our written materials. So we don't have as much of our stuff collected as we have in Egypt. And so it made me start thinking that even if you think your story is not so important, or you just have a little life or whatever, like all of that written material and how you live and how you act and how you did the things that you do and how you please God and how you go to God, all of those things like is rich material. So your life like extremely matters and it is really important. So so my job here is to be able to put some of these things into writing. And I just want to give, can I give well, I'm going to, it's like, nah, but, Sister Ayola, where's Sister Ayola? There she is. Raise your hand, Sister Ayola. Yes. So, Sister Ayola, she's so cute. Sister Ayola is a first generation, like her parents converted to Islam. And so she was born and raised Muslim, or grew up Muslim. So her book is called Growing Up Muslim, and she put together her story of growing up in the nation of Islam and then coming into Sunni Islam. And these are the types of things that we want to capture, right? We want to be able to know this history, because if we don't capture it, somebody else will tell it, and it may not be the full truth. So we want to be able to tell their stories in their words. So that's my goal.
Okay, good. So you mentioned Mexico, right? So you've traveled a lot extensively, taking groups abroad to Senegal, Morocco, and such, right? So how did that experience, right, cause you to rethink, like locally, about Black Muslims here through history of Detroit?
Yeah, we're super dope actually. Like when you look at the ways that this community has been able to build a network and build a village is very remarkable. And I always tell people, like, I'm from the village in Detroit, like a little Muslim village, and that's what I call it, because we have aunties, we have uncles, we have all of these people that like pour into us. And when I travel abroad, like I said, my full thing is I just like to see the way people live, and that's my full thing. But it also, whenever you travel, it makes you reflect upon your own life and your own community and your own place. And I realized that we are extremely blessed, not just to have a comfortable place to pray and be, but we are extremely blessed to like have this village and have people that, like if I fell down in Ohio, I would call Rashid and be like, hey, I need some help. And he's gonna come. He's not related to me by blood, but he's gonna be there, right, Rashid?
Yes, sir. Yes,
Yeah. So, like that type of community is extremely special. And you see it when you travel other places. So I think for us, and for this particular project, it's just for us to realize that that we have something special, and for us to not take it for granted. And then the other thing that I realized, the other thing I realized through reading some of the stories in the book, and at their feet, like we interviewed 50 elders. And in reading a lot of their stories, I noticed that when they were 13, when they were 14, when they were 15, many of them, that's when they started having like these huge spiritual awakenings and coming into Islam in their teen years, right? In their teen years. And now we oftentimes think that teenagers can't really do anything, or they have to wait, they have to get older, they have to be more mature. But these people were building this village and changing their entire lives at 13, at 14, at 15. So, young people, right, who are here, you guys have a lot of power. And I hope that these type of projects inspire you all to recognize that, like, the ideas that you have, bring them forward. And this is the last thing I promise. But the other thing I like about these interviews, and then, listening to the elders, is they were not punks. Like, they had ideas, and then they put them forward, and they put them forward regardless of what other people thought and said. And what I'm noticing now is that a lot of my particular generation, we complain, like, oh, the elders are not stepping down, and they won't give us the reins, and da-da-da-da. And, like, they didn't wait for that. Like, they were 13, 14, 15, 16, and they wanted to establish masjids and places, and they did it. So I hope that we stop being little punks, too, and that we actually step up and do the stuff without trying to say that they're not letting us. you know, you have agency and you can do whatever you want to do. So, yes.
Takbir. And I just would like to say, if one of you, young people, if you get up and you try real hard and an elder knock you down, don't worry, brother, she's got bandages. All right, Tasneem. Question. Okay, so tell us about your background and your experiences in preserving the media industry and including your photography.
So my background, I am a self-taught photographer of 10 years. But I feel like I've always been a photographer. I feel like it's in my blood, like literally. My mother would tell me stories about how my grandfather, how he photographed the riots of '67, and how he had an archive somewhere, and I actually need to get my hands on those photographs. But I remember just being enamored with the fact that he was just like so daunting enough to go and face the danger and capture it with his camera. He was a dentist by trade, but that was something that he did with passion. So when I was about 18, I started taking pictures with my camera phone, and I would share them to this like art website. And the feedback that I got, I thought, well, if I could do this with my phone, imagine what I could do with like an actual camera. So when I was 20, I used my dowry to get a camera and a photocopy or something. But I started seriously shooting in about 2011. And at first I was just like practicing, but I remember seeing photographs that my parents took from the African World Festival, and people that I saw in those Polaroids, once I like got able to like get out and go around and do things, like I started meeting these people. And I thought that was really powerful because had I not had those photographs, I probably would have never like stepped up to these people like, hey, I have a picture of you and you're wearing this gorgeous garb and what's your name, you know? So growing up extremely sheltered, I was really shy, but my camera gave me the confidence to walk up to someone and ask them their name and ask them their story and to be able to learn things about them that I wouldn't have had, like you said, maybe previously. And then I realized that confidence was there without the camera as well, so it helped me grow as well. But the point where I realized that I was doing something that was important and special was, like, I would document the festivals that I grew up going to, that my parents took me to, and I would just share it. I would just share my work because it was, for me, it was kind of like therapy, but I would also photograph the things that I saw as beautiful or the things that I saw special and important. I didn't like initially think, oh, I'm gonna go and photograph this Black family and share it so people can see that, you know. Like initially that wasn't the case. But then I realized when I shared it, the way that people responded, that this is actually a form of activism because this is challenging everything that we see that's coming from the media that's attacking who we are as a people, attacking the fact that we have a family construct that we protect and take care of and foster. And within the Muslim context, people don't know that this exists. They don't know that what we have exists. So there was one Eid in particular, and a lot of you remember the Eid because it was like the first time we like really set the precedence for Detroit having the best Eids in the world. But anyway, it was a 4-day celebration, and we ended up having this really big concert. Miss Landon and you know, Dre DeMore, some other people came through from out of town. It was sponsored by Hollywood. And from Thursday, the way that Eid fell from Thursday to Sunday, we had nonstop action. And I did something unique, so I uploaded my photos at the end of the night for each day. And the response that I got was overwhelming, and that's when I realized that not only is this dawah, because people didn't know that we celebrate, that we actually have something special, that just because we don't celebrate, you know, those, the false holidays in the calendar, that we don't have anything. So people are able to see that not only do we have something special, we have community, we have each other, we have a bond, and it's an homage of the work that those before us have laid down. So that was the deciding moment for me, where I realized that this is important work and I'm documenting history and I have to keep doing this.
Lord, so good.
So you've had multiple roles, right? In the Storyteller Project. Like, so give us like some comments from your experiences from both sides.
Yeah, so, no, it's funny because, you know, me being the photographer and this, I honestly just went to say the background. I told her, like, whatever you need, I probably shouldn't have said that, but I said, whatever you need, you know, just let me know, I'm there. So, first it said, hey, you know, I got someone else you need, can you call Dr. Lee Perkins? So, I was like, okay, cool. And I was invited to be a part of the Storyteller Project as lead photographer. And that's where I'm good at, like behind the camera, I'm good right there. So when they're like, oh, I want you to be interviewed. The first time Dr. Lisa said it, I was like, no, I'm good, I'm fine. Let's get the important people, let's get the elders. But I think after a month of being present, interviews, helping, she said, well, Mark really wants you to be interviewed. And I'm like, Mark told you that? And she's like, yeah. So I was just like, darn, I have to do it now. So I wanted to interview something like that. And when it was explained to me that because of my role as an artist and with also being intertwined with so many communities, that it was important for my story to be told. So my support, you know, volunteering in Detroit, my support with being a community member in the Wilson Center, my support with just, honestly, I'm the community photographer, and I say that with pride because this work is just too important. And when I think of these past few years and how many people passed away, subhanAllah, like the amount of history that I've captured, it made me realize how important this work is and that it is making a difference and that it is impacting people. So with that being said, my role within the project, I will actually do a black and white photography series using the work that I had taken and also the work that I will take portraiture of those involved in the project.
That good. I guess we're ready for the second video.
So we're gonna move into the next couple of videos, and you know, these ones I think are so important because they really speak to the leadership of women in this community in particular, but also our willingness to create our own traditions. Inshallah, you know, the task of passing those traditions down to successive generations. So we have a short clip from Sister Catherine, and then a short clip from Sister Julia Sabri, inshallah.
In the Jewish community, they have bar mitzvah, right? In the Christian community, they have sweet 16s. Well, Imam, I think it was Brother Azam Sami, and Imam Salim Mukman came up with the idea of the Baluk al-Walid. The Baluk al-Walid came from the Quran, meaning the maturity of the child. That was to keep our children off that sweet 16, introducing them to the world. Well, we didn't want to introduce our children to the world. So we had our first Baluk al-Walid here. And we're a family here. I mean, the Muslim Center was built on families. Everybody came here was a family. And so the Baluk al-Walid was, we had a feast. If the family couldn't afford it, the whole mosque, the Muslim Center did the feast. And we said to that child, this is what we see you doing in the future when they reach 16, 17, whatever. So it was a program of the whole community was invited. The child received the Quran from the Muslim Center, not one the parent gave him, but from the Muslim Center. The believers at the Baruch El Wallet was able to share with the child what they see that child growing up to be. Whether they're going to be a leader, a doctor, a teacher, this is what we see. Then the parents got a chance to talk to their child in front of us. And the child got the opportunity at the age of 16 to become a voter. They could vote at the Muslim Center about what things they want to see go on in the Muslim Center. Board members, they have that right because they had matured as a child. And so we look for leadership from them. And they will tell us at the end what they thought they planned to do for Islam and for the world, for humanity. And so it's a Baruch El Wallet. All of my children had one. Any child parent couldn't have one and couldn't afford it. We got it together, we decorated, we did it as a family.
We have so many knowledgeable Muslim women here at the Muslim Center. I don't know if people realize that. I have aunts here who I realized as an older child weren't my real blood aunts. So I thought those were my like mom's sisters. That's how close the community was here. We could always eat here. We were hungry. Prayer 5 times a day. Anything we needed. Community Muslim Center provided. As a kid, I didn't really have a choice. I was here all the time. Class-wise, it would just be Islamic studies. It was different topics on trying to strengthen my knowledge of the religion. The Muslim Center provided a certain type of experience and environment. Like step class, you typically won't get that in another mosque. But that's something I was doing anyway at school, but to have my Muslim friends do a step class and then doing it with surahs and helping us learn more about the religion, it became fun. Like learning about our religion was a fun experience. I can remember us actually laughing and having a good time. And sometimes, as all women, we could talk about, or I get to hear sometimes about relationships and marriage. And that was also something that was important because as a young woman, you necessarily don't get everything from your own household as to what it means to look for in a partner. So hearing it from other women who have been through the experiences, that was also a nice addition. They were like second mothers. They were essential to, and they are essential to the Black Muslim community in Detroit. If the Muslim Center was not here, we would have a problem. What I noticed here, the gratuity, the giving of the Muslim women here and men, but specifically the women, the soup kitchen, the dedication, cleaning, the vacuuming, the musala, everything that the women just do. No one asks anyone to do it, but they give their time, money, everything they have here. We have so.
So with that, alhamdulillah, we're gonna move into some more remarks. So, mashallah, again, we had some incredible interns on this entire project, and we want to allow an opportunity for any of our interns who are here tonight and want to offer a few words to do that. Then we're going to have another video, and inshallah, after that, we'll actually give some awards to the young interns. And so to start us off with those remarks, another dynamic young woman in our community who played a really integral role in this project, mashallah. So I want to ask Sister Zainab Yusuf Ahmed to come up, and she's going to deliver some remarks on behalf of our interns.
My name is Zainab Yusuf Ahmed. I'm a senior at Australian Academy. After graduating in June, inshallah, alhamdulillah, I'll be off to further my education at the University of Michigan, Ann Arbor. It is needless for me to have a lengthy introduction because most of you all know me. In fact, most of you all know me better than I know myself. I am the daughter of Leah Muhammad, and shout out to my grandmother, Mary Nisa, may Allah have mercy on her soul. But for those who do not know me, here are a few things about me. History is my favorite subject. I'm a spoken word poet, and I love storytelling. Usually when I'm up on the podium, I'm performing one of my spoken word pieces. And today, inshallah, I will do the same. But before I do, I want to talk a bit about my experience being involved in the Storyteller Project. I became a junior storytelling intern at the very beginning in 2020. And alhamdulillah, I'm so glad that I did. Mom, thank you for forcing me. Being part of this has been an amazing experience. I worked as an ethnographer and interviewing community members for the literal storytelling part of the project. It's been such an engaging experience because I was preserving the history of my own people. My first interview was with Dr. Nadia Mohammed, or as I call her, Auntie Nadia. Her being a family member took all the pressure of presenting the interview away. It was just like a normal conversation with one aunt. But it also added a pressure of importance. This project made me realize that these same stories that I've heard all my life at family gatherings and community events are actually historical events and monumental stories that need to be heard, that need to be learned and shared, studied, and most importantly, documented. Even in preparations for these interviews, Dr. Alyssa would help me do research, and in those phone calls and conversations with her, I'd be like, yes, Dr. Alyssa, I know that sister, she makes like really good mac and cheese, but I never talked to her about the economy or anything like that. It just wasn't me, I never really thought about it like that. This was my family, it wasn't a research project, ironically. But once I started to see the significance of this project as an honor, and I started to see my community as an empire of rich histories. Personally, I think the significant yet simple part of having the youth of this community working on preserving the history of this community is simply the eye-opening part of the experience. If we don't acknowledge and celebrate this beautiful and heavy history that you all created, then who are we to benefit from it? As youth, if we do not acknowledge and celebrate this beautiful and heavy history that you have strived so hard to create, then who are we to benefit from it? So let's talk about it. My first interview was with Dr. Nadia Mohammed. This is a woman who is dissatisfied with the mainstream healthcare, so she embraced holistic medicine. She healed herself and then others. Apart from being a holistic doctor, she also teaches classes in holistic medicine. She also presents Muslim University, which is a women's learning circle about the connection between Islam and healing. In a world where oftentimes Black Muslim women are alienated, disregarded, and disrespected, we need to see women like her overcoming the limiting beliefs of others. I felt empowered interviewing Auntie Maggie, mindfully learning her story and her history. She gave me strength and the bravery to excel in myself and whatever else Allah has planned for me. I got to interview one of the founders of the League of Muslim Women. This organization, made by the mothers of our community, focused on providing Islamic social services in Detroit. They established housing facilities for Muslim seniors and women in need, collected and distributed winter clothing, and set up food pantries and soup kitchens, things that are still happening today at the Muslim Center. They organized fundraisers, including modest fashion shows, skating parties, and annual dinners. They even did an educational exchange program all the way to West Africa. And the thing about this is, I met one of those sisters when I was living in West Africa, and I didn't think anything of it at all. She told me about all the things she's done, and I was like, okay, grandma, I get it, whatever. And even with the former president, Sister Nikki Grace Henderson, she said all these amazing things she did, and it was just such a normal tone. MashaAllah, she's so humble, but it was such a normal tone that I couldn't see the significance of it. She was just like, this is me, this is who I am, and this is what I do. But today I want to acknowledge and expound on how beautiful it is that everyone in our community for so long has been serving this way, so authentically. This is who we are. This is what we do. This is natural to us. I pray that these things, that these attributes, and these norms will continue and get even better throughout the years. These interviews quickly became much more than just gaining information for the documentation of it. It became a window for me personally to understand my own community in a multi-dimensional way. Looking into the past and also seeing what is expected from me in the future. I think my most recent interview was with Navintu Dumbia. Navintu is an alumni from NFN Academy. She has a strong energy to her and I've always admired her. She was one of the coolest seniors in the eyes of middle school me. Even after graduating NFN Academy, she continued her activism and involvement in the community. She joined the NFN Academy Alumni Association and also became the regional director of the Muslim Interscholastic Tournament. I think next week is when she graduates from law school, mashallah. After interviewing many elders gratefully, interviewing Navintu felt like traveling through time. It was such a circle back feeling for me, not only because she's someone who never forgets her roots and always comes back, but also because she was the beginning of my generation. It was like a generation jump, seeing how those same exact goals for the community are being passed down and carried out. In an interview with Sister Sharif, we talked a lot about how African American Muslims strive to pave the way for all Muslims to be able to practice openly and comfortably in America. People like Malcolm X, Honorable Elijah Muhammad, and other people set in place such strong and blessed foundations. They established Muslims in America, and we continue that legacy on this journey of striving with the cause of Allah. Just overall, so many amazing people sitting here around us, making Juma with us, breaking fast with us, making Juma with us, and I just never noticed. I feel much more connected and excited for my community. I feel proud and blessed to be surrounded by such amazing and inspiring people. There are about 9 interns, some being here today. Most of us were good friends or at least acquaintances before starting on the project. I think I even remember Zaina and a few other people sending me the flyer to become an intern after I had already applied. We were all involved in different ways and had different styles of participating. I remember at one point I was meeting on Zoom with people that had left Michigan along with my sister, and the same week was here in the Muslim Center recording interviews. It was a lot of work, but I think we all benefited from it. All the interns who worked on this project consider themselves to be part of this community, and if they don't, you better do now. And I keep saying community, but I can easily replace it with the word love, home, or family. And as corny as it is, it's true. The Black Muslim community in Detroit has made and maintained a home for everyone. We've made available the means of education, health, support, spirituality, and so much more. I know a documentary cannot do justice to generations of profound history, but I do believe that documenting and celebrating this legacy is well overdue. Inshallah, it will be a success. Right now, like the brother said, we are halfway done. We've done 50 interviews and we want to do inshallah 50 more. There's so many people we'd love to interview. We would appreciate any help that we can get, and I especially want to encourage young people, especially other class students, to get more involved. Inshallah, we'll see that, especially from students now. I pray Allah will accept and bless our efforts and bless everyone who has worked so hard and truly sacrificed for the wellness and betterment of this community and beyond. I want to end with a short poem. My name is Zainab, and I want to go to grad school at a Black university. I don't mean segregation, I mean historically Black university. Did y'all know that my school is a historically Black academy where they focused on wellness regardless of wealth, where they focused on Islamic-based mental health? This was the space, this was the place for my race to embrace thyself. And we welcome our Blacks with open arms, adopting communities and protecting them from harm, lifting nations with our arms while still healing ourselves, from more than firearm trauma. Heal with laughter, heal with fight, heal with prayer in the middle of the night. We are healing everything. Healing beauty folks wish you to see. Healing my soul is what set me free. Healing the mind so you can be who you want to be. We're healing with the skies, so the stars alarm to see. We're healing with music because we really felt that beat. And healing my hair, so don't you dare touch she. We're just gonna be. We say I'm focusing on me, focus on the heart, focus on your deeds, focus on your deeds, focus on the mind, we're learning new things, focus on our finance because we miss being kings, focus on what we are doing, focus on what we are pursuing. focus on what we are doing. Is it healthy? Trying to be as strong as I can be, and not just physically, I'm talking mentally, spiritually, environmentally, socially. We're gonna focus on our social health. That means community wealth, that means conversational stuff, that means love. Loving the people, loving the race, loving every person who comes face to face, love without judgment, love without an impact, but love thyself regardless of the past. Love don't hear and know, but it does heal, because I feel that every time that I kneel before God, in public or in private too. And let me remind you, give you a clue maybe. Before Muslim cultures flew into the West, there were white people who took on the task of being blessed with Islam and a culture without deen. Yet some Muslims still act like Islam is a biological gene. Islam is a blessing we use to heal ourselves, reading about the Islamic lifestyle from dusty shelves. And now, my lifestyle will go on the dusty shelves. Thank you.
Take care. Take care. Take care.
Bismillah. Thank you so much, Zainab. MashaAllah, that was really beautiful. It was moving. So now we want to invite some of our other interns. We'll start with Brother Zayd. Give a few remarks.
الحمد لله الذي هدانا لهذا وما كنا لنهتدي لولا أن هدانا الله. Firstly, I want to thank Allah. Secondly, I want to say thank you for giving me the opportunity to learn my own history, to learn our history. Sometimes I'll come here and I'll sit in an interview, maybe I'll video or I'll ask questions or I'll be the interviewer. And then I'll go home and I'll ask my parents, I'll ask my Abu, and I'll say, oh, did you know this? And he would say, oh yeah, I knew this. And I was like, how come I didn't? Tell me. So I'm very grateful that I got the opportunity to learn a lot about this community. I used to come here a lot, I didn't know 1%. I didn't know 99% of the things that I know now. And I just want to say thank you. And it's something good. If you don't have time to watch it, you should make time to watch it. And it's very good. Come to that. Assalamu alaikum.
Thank you. So before we get into our next set of videos, I wanted to ask if Sister Mahima or Naima or Samaya wanted to offer any remarks. MashaAllah. So we'll award them momentarily. So we want to continue with our next few videos, inshallah. Please, MashaAllah, MashaAllah. Please,
Sorry about that. Can you guys hear me now? Yeah. Great. Yeah. So it's been a minute since I've been on the podium, but I will say thank you. This was actually a really great experience, a really nice learning experience. I'm not very social myself, so it was really interesting to learn a lot from the community. I am very grateful for this experience. When did I start this? I think I started this summer. So it was a really interesting time for me, and I really enjoyed it, you know, doing this on the weekends and everything. If you are someone else to get involved with this, I highly recommend it. I appreciate all the efforts that we put into this. It was a great experience. Thank you all.
Thank you. Any other remarks?
Assalamu alaikum. My name is Maya Cook. I got into the project in the beginning, 2020, right during the pandemic. And I remember my mom, she just like Zainab, she forced me into it. She says, do it summer before you start college, you know, have something on your resume. But I'm really thankful that she did. I remember the Zoom, it was really rough. Like you could see in some of the videos, I was in my bedroom, terrible lighting, even with the people I was interviewing as well. But I think it's been really amazing to see how far the project has come from Zoom in the bedroom to here at the Muslim Center.
And even the progress with the video as well. I know some of the earlier videos before we had the system was like it was like you could see the camera, it's all shaky, tilted cameras. But I think we really made do with what we had, and we definitely improved over time with the plan. You can see in a lot of the videos. So one other thing that I wanted to talk about is how much, you don't realize how, who you're, I'm sorry. You don't really realize who you're talking to every Friday, who you're praying beside, who you're talking to in your masjid. I didn't realize. It kind of humbles you to realize that you're interacting with these amazing people every day. But yeah, that's
Takbir.
Allahu Akbar.
Okay, so inshallah, we're gonna watch our next set of videos, and then we'll get into our awards, inshallah. Number one, let me just say, I think it's hilarious. They started this before Zoom had the blur my background feature, so we were just making it happen however we needed to in this early pandemic life. We'll say more about the interns in a minute. I'm kind of getting ahead of myself after hearing them speak, but we'll say more about them and just how incredible and critical they were in just a second. So the next couple of videos I want to share come from Ma'am Tawheed Rashad and Sister Samira Sadiq. And these are videos that we paired together because number one, they're both talking about the process of establishing an autonomous community. And number two, they're both people who've been critically involved with other communities, but also, to use a phrase Imam Tawheed used at the Member a few weeks ago, they have sweat equity at the Muslim Center. And so, the stories that they tell are just representative of how close-knit this entire Detroit Muslim community is across all of the masajid. So we want to start with their videos.
Al-Aqaba was born out of a need to rebuild. I can't recall the exact dates, but shortly after Imam Luqman was assassinated, it was like, okay, we need to start anew. And so Al-Aqaba was born out of that. It was short-lived, but Allah doesn't make any mistakes, and it was so needed and so necessary at that time. The mission is always the same, and that's to be autonomous. Black Muslims have always been railroaded to adopt someone else's understanding, someone else's practices, someone else's dress, someone else's culture, someone else's food. And we weren't really allowed to just be us in our authentic selves and our authentic ways without having to sit up and perform and be someone else. And so the goal was to just provide a platform where Black Muslims can be Black Muslims, in fact. We didn't have to change our accent. It was okay if we mispronounced a word, and it's okay if we wanted to wear a gele and not, a niqab. It's okay if we brought macaroni and cheese to the community dinner and not galaba or whatever. It was a place where you can be you. We have to kind of start building our culture as Black Muslims. And I think that it starts with a conversation, and then it starts with a commitment. And I encourage my fellow Black Muslims to not have anything to hide and to tell your story before someone else tells it. Let the world hear your voice and see your face before they can see someone else's. Everyone else is telling our story. Everyone else is. When you think or when you hear Muslim in the media, you don't see Black Muslims. We as Black Muslims in this land are subcultures of a subculture, right? So we're very few in numbers, and it's very important that we start to lean in on each other and start lifting each other up in whatever ways that we can. We have to be strong, and we have to start addressing some of these endemic ills that we have, and that we're not safe because we're Muslim. We're more responsible because we're Muslim. I think the onus is on us because we're Muslim to do better and to be better. Al-Aqaba was
Before Imam Muhammad passed away, he had made a statement to all of the mosques in his association that when he's gone, that we should make him a nice home. Okay, and that nice home should reflect 33 years of teachings and things of what he taught us as far as establishing Muslim community, independent Muslim community, connecting with our surrounding neighborhoods. And another thing was to build things that the best dawah, the best propagation that we could do in any neighborhood was to buildings and schools and things that the whole community could benefit. You know, this was something that he said that would endear us to the community. You know, and Master Wali Muhammad has been through social unrest and trouble. And as you see, the protests and things that are happening in the city now at this present time, the mosque has always been respected, even when they were burning buildings and burning up neighborhoods in the 60s. Nobody touched any of the masjid's property because of the respect that they had for the Muslim community. And to this day, all of the neighborhoods still around Masjid Wali Muhammad still have respect. And we still have homeowners that were back in the 60s and their families and things. So we have what we call neighborhood credibility in these communities, you know. So as young folks say, street cred. And so we still have a lot of that. Getting back to that question of our involvement with the community of Imam Wali Muhammad, we see ourselves as a leader in following his footprint, if you will, on our community. Even though he's gone, we're still rallying around those things that he left for us as far as following the logic of Islam and embracing, and I would say having a homegrown indigenous Muslim community. In Africa, you see African Islam. In Arabia, you see Arabian Islam. And in America, thus you see American Islam. So Imam, he put emphasis on us being ourselves, okay? And that we didn't have to commit cultural apostasy by taking on somebody else's tradition or dress or mindset. And that's the most you can give any community, to not to have a mind that's shackled with old ideas and, you know, and shackled to look at somebody else and not look at themselves as part of the Muslims in North America.
So we'll pause there, and then inshallah we'll do one more set of videos in a bit. But you know, subhanAllah, I just think that message, or the combination of those messages, is just so relevant for this message, you know, which has been so intentional about again creating traditions in the Black Muslim culture. You know, but also relevant in the sense that you know, that as it relates to the youth involved with this project, it's them that are going to take that culture forward. It's them that are the proof of whether that culture making is actually working. It's, you know, it's them that are the next stage of that indigenization of Islam in America. So we want to show those clips, and you know, we appreciate Sister Samira and that's how the youth participated. So kind of all of the youth who are involved in this project. And to do that, we've asked a couple of elders in the community to say some brief remarks and to join us here for photos with those youth. And so First, I'm going to ask Ma'am Dear Ahmed to come up, and then after him, Sister Nafisa Matthew to come and say a few words. As you heard, Sister Zainab shout out our class. The fingerprints of our class Training County are all over this project with the youth who've been involved. Mashallah. And we do hope to continue working with more our class youth in the future. Took 8 youth to record the videos that we had so far. I think I'm going to count them by one, but we'll name everyone in a minute. But again, we're going to continue this partnership with our class and continue to benefit from the incredible training that Imam Nadir and his staff provide. So without further ado, sisters and brothers, assalamu alaikum. أعوذ بالله من الشيطان الرجيم بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم الحمد لله رب العالمين أشهد أن لا إله إلا الله وحده لا شريك له وأشهد أن محمدا عبده ورسوله صلى الله عليه وسلم على رسول الله وعلى آله وصحبه أجمعين. Our dear respected brothers and sisters, and that is all of you. It's certainly my honor and pleasure to be here with you this evening. And we'd like to express our thanks and appreciation to Dr. Perkins and Brother Mark and all of you for having us here this afternoon. I'd like to also express my appreciation to the panelists here for their great work that they've put into this project of storytelling. This is a very important work, in my opinion, because, you know, and especially for the youth that were involved in this project, this is very important. But not just for those that were involved, it's for youth in general, because it's very important that, as has been forestated by many of you, it's important that Muslims, we have got a story to tell. And it's a story that should be known, not just by us and by our youth, but by America, period. Because our story is an American story. And that story needs to be known by America. And, you know, I don't want to take up a lot of time, and really I don't have the energy either. I just left dialysis at 5:30 this evening, so I don't have much energy. But really, brothers and sisters, what we are involved in and what we're witnessing is a modern day miracle. A modern day miracle. When you go back and trace our history, look at our past and what we've gone through as African Americans here in America, and to now be standing up in Islam, not just standing up, but as leaders in Islam, this is a modern day miracle. And we're so grateful. We're so grateful to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala that He favored us. Because this is the favor of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. So we again would like to express our thanks and appreciation to all of you. And may Allah bless all of you and bless this project. Dr. Perkins, again, thanks so much for the great work that you're doing. And all of you that are involved in this project, thank you so much. May Allah bless you all. Assalamu alaikum. Sister Nafisa.
Assalamu alaikum. Bismillahirrahmanirrahim. Alhamdulillah Rabbil Alameen. We thank Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala for blessing each of us to be here and allowing us to participate or be a part of such a noble undertaking. And I'd like to also join in thanking the Dream Storytelling Project for all of those who were involved. Dr. Perkins, Mark Crane, and the entire team, as well as our panelists that are here today. And we also want to thank the Dream Initiative just from the beginning in terms of trying to, or having the vision to reconnect, revitalize, and just to move our community forward, because this is an example of moving the community forward. It's time to move on to the next level. And as we've seen by our young people, some of them we've heard from and some we haven't, it is in capable hands. I know some of the students personally, I've worked with some of them closely, and we're just waiting for them to come into their greatness as we believe they will. And Allah has put that in their hearts. We've seen evidence of that, and Allah knows best. But we feel very good moving forward in terms of the blessings that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala has allowed us to even get a glimpse of at this point. We've seen some of the prayers that we know that our ancestors have sent forth, and those we've sent forth, coming into view in what our young people are representing. And I just hope that each of you, and I know as one of our students mentioned that they've been able to, after participating in this project, so much more is being known about this very rich community that you are a big part of. And really, when we think about it, there are giants that have come from this community, and you are those offsprings of those giants. There are trailblazers in our history. There are heroes. When you're looking for a hero, you don't have to look very far. You can look around, even in this room, and see some of the heroes. And I hope this project has allowed you to get a glimpse or even get to know some of those who have come before you and the struggle that they have gone through in order to get all of us to this point where we find ourselves today. The struggles, the sacrifices, so much has been put into bringing us up to today. And sometimes even ourselves, we don't always know as much about ourselves as maybe some other people from other Islamic communities are aware. And what brings that to mind, just one example, I know back in February, my husband and I were blessed to make Umrah. And while we were there at one of the DARs, which is when we have a lecturer come in and speak, to us periodically, just to, just to encourage us, remind us of what the purpose of being in Umrah was. And one of the representatives there He was from Mecca, Saudi Arabia, one of the speakers. And one of the points he interjected is that he mentioned El-Hajj Malik Shabazz. Back here in America, Malcolm, as we know, as Malcolm X, may Allah have mercy on him, and all of the people he has affected. And what he said is that this is someone that you should know. If you don't know his story, you need to know it. And this is all the way over across in Mecca, Saudi Arabia. This is someone I didn't know, and many of the people in our group, I mean, there were maybe 3 of us that were African Americans, but then the group itself consisted of people from other parts of the world. But this is something he wanted to interject for whatever the reason. So sometimes we don't always know the rich history that we're coming from. And sometimes, and one of the benefits I'm seeing from this project is that hopefully it is reconnecting the young and the old together, so we can have a better understanding of who we are. Because sometimes the young people look at the legacy receiving you don't have to. It's a very rich under the truth. He had to make that change. Even though it was against him, look at the people that say, what? I thought this is what you believe, this and that. No, he went with his heart. Even Imam Worthy Muhammad. Some of you might or may not know about him, but this is what he did with his community discipline, that not everything was falling into place and he didn't feel that that was the right thing. He said, no, we're turning in this direction. And some followed him and some could no longer go with him. But he had to do what he felt was the right thing, even though it was not popular. Even though everybody was accustomed to doing the same thing or doing one thing, you have to follow truth. If I tell you something, anyone else, and that doesn't feel right, then you need to do some research. You need to see, it's because let Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala guide you. And in closing, Allah has given us the truth. He's given us the Quran. He's given us the example in the Prophet, peace be upon him. Alhamdulillah, and that's one of the greatest gifts. I've always said, of all the gifts I've ever received, one of those, the gifts that I just thank Allah so much for, is making me Muslim and being able to give that to my children, whether they accept it or not. Being able to give truth and have guidance is something that one of the most valuable things you can ever have. So I thank you, and for our young people, like I say, I know many of you. I feel so confident that you will go ahead and take this to the next level. May Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala continue to guide the dream vision, even one that includes the elders, so to say, because we're living in a society where the elders are considered, in many cases, valueless. So just to have the insight to know that your elders are a very big part of your community. A community consists of the young as well as the old and the other. Everyone has a part to play, and I thank you for realizing that and for documenting the oral stories that have been shared by the community.
To this work to have that what I'd like to do is actually invite
the most exciting part. The most exciting part of the evening for me is awarding these people with something so that, you know, especially one of our interns who did many really great effort. Thank you so much. Our next award is for Lasagna Cindy, and it will be accepted by his sister. And Lasagna will excel in aspects of the storytelling process, especially the videography aspect. He had a real eye for that, and he's a very artistic vision, and a work in the process, yeah, I was like, just our next award is for India Madison. I'm not sure if she was able to be with us today, but she did a wonderful work, especially interviewing Sister Devine Alameen and preserving some very important history that way. And I will congratulate her in person, hopefully in the future. Congratulations to India. Our next award is for a young man that you all know as Zaid Wali, who came here. Really did just such a spectacular.
So we're going to go ahead and close now, inshallah. I'm going to ask Sheikh Convening if you could join me and close us out. I'm sure the Abba before you're done is called over the microphone. You know, this project, subhanAllah, you know, the years go by fast the older you get, right? But some of these kids, they was shorter than me when this project started. Some kids graduated and are halfway through college now. So, but we're so grateful for their involvement and for, again, the accomplishment of capturing these histories for our community. As I close, I just want to encourage everyone, please join us for dinner, inshallah, after this. We got a nice meal from Sister Khalifa. I think we got a little bit of sorbet left over from earlier. And at dinner, we'll also be passing around recommendation forms. Recommendation forms so that you can suggest people who we should capture in our next set of histories, but also youth who can be involved in the next round of interviews. Again, you know, there were this handful of folks who you saw awarded tonight, who were just absolutely critical. We couldn't have done this project without them. As Dr. Lisa said, for us, the process is as important as the product or the outcome. And so, you know, the project is about them in a lot of ways. And so hopefully we can get just as strong a batch of young folks in our community for this next round of interviews, people who are motivated or whose moms are motivated to send them. We can provide a good mentorship experience, a good development experience and shop for dinner. And I just want to thank you, NFN, for closing us out this time.
Alhamdulillah, salatu wa salam ala Rasulullah. يا أيها الناس إن الله إلى أن تعرفوا إن أكرمكم عند الله أتقاكم إن الله عليم خبير. So how do I follow up like this? And when I was looking, so I know you're gonna joke with me later on, but the beauty of it was the name of it was SANKOFA, which in traditional and temporary study back to the beneficial knowledge that you have, and you bring it to the future to benefit, or your present to benefit your future. And so that was the most perfect and befitting name. Now, mind you, SANKOFA is showing the back and the forward, so we have in the city griot here representing reality of the griots. And the list, we had audio-visual advisory of what a griot is. Also, with Malika Aveo, we had the visual representation of the multimedia, which is the semblance of Egyptian hieroglyphs. With Zarina, we had the proverbial of the history of things with books, which is the semblance of the scribes. With Tasneem, we had a semblance of the imagery, taking all the way back to the cave paintings, or even frescoes, from cave paintings all the way to frescoes, or all the way up to modern day. So literally in the panel, we had SANKOFA, represented Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, will bless us with beneficial knowledge. And that this will be a movement in which, because this is a multimedia representation of what African history and Islamic history has been from the start of time up to now. It's oral and it can be consumed. And I pray that we all consume it, we share it within our hearts, and we share it with others. So there's a simple dua of Sallallahu Alaihi Wasallam that I like to take in closing. ومن قول لا يشفعون ومن نفس لا تشفعون ومن دعوة لا يستجاب لها. Which means, oh Allah, you see, gratitude for knowledge that isn't beneficial. Because there's some knowledge that's not beneficial. There's some hustlers on the street right now you can get knowledge from, and it's not beneficial for you. But this knowledge right here is beneficial. How is it beneficial? Because it's going to benefit the path into the future. And it's creating this by having a heart that isn't at peace. You know that is true of Islam. If you're not at peace, then you're not in the state of Islam. Every night you should be in the state of Islam. That's why some says the best of us are the ones who can remove these things from our heart. And then he said, like, yes, most people don't realize what khushu' is. Khushu' is the awareness of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. But with these 70 million or something odd cells, we can make the cells when you're in fire, it should be apparent on your body. So khushu', you can see it. You all will understand it because the young people know what's going on. Hard, be calm. And what about with Allah and Prophet Muhammad sallallahu alaihi wasallam? Or having a soul that isn't satisfied with Allah. Young, we need to be more satisfied with what Allah has given us in efforts like this. Or dua, or supplication and prayer that is. And we ask that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala will make this a prayer that is ongoing. This is the Sadaqah Jariyah, illa abadan, illa yawm all the way until the end of time. And one dua that I learned from one of the elder sisters in our community in West Africa, I saw it and in it, with that dua and listen closing, oh Allah, cover our imperfections and pacify our fears and worries. Accept our repentance and purify our intentions. Answer all our supplications and provide us with more than what we ask for. strengthen the weak ones among our shortcomings, and provide us with the best in this world and the hereafter. I don't want to say that I see so, and that's what I